Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I am Brad here with Doug.
Hi.
This is our second in our three-part Game of the Year annual series event.
Mm,
And this one is Doug's 5 favorite games from 2017.
yes.
I am very interested in this one because Doug has some weird opinions this year that I feel like if I didn't know him better would just be out there to piss people off.
Yeah.
But I know after talking to you many times about these games, it's actually how you feel about them. So I'm very interesting to see
Yeah.
how this list shaked out because I feel like my top five, which you can go back and listen to, that was the first part, was fairly, I think, hit the ones you would assume.
Yeah.
And I feel like yours is going to be a little different, so I'm a little interested to get into this.
Yeah. No, I guess me too.
So let's get into this. So number fifth best game of 2017.
I did this last year. I'm gonna do it again. I sort of had a tie because I couldn't figure out which one to put in five. I didn't want to kick one out.
Well, to be fair, I did throw on like a sixth one for Edith Finch on mine, so I guess that's fairly legit.
Well, Edith Finch is here, so that's why so yeah, I have Edith Finch and Night in the Woods. As sort of like in my top five. Like I need to talk about these two games.
Okay,
Um,
they
I mean, I
deserve a
get,
place in the game of the year discussion in some way.
yeah. I mean, because I think they both did. Because I think they both did video game storytelling in really, really, really interesting ways. Like
Mm-hmm.
push, like literally, like pushing the medium forward ways. I think Edith Finch. We talked a lot about that. You can see our video here.
Yeah, you can't do
But
that on YouTube anymore, but good try.
oh, okay. Well, it's in the. You can click on the playlist or something. So no, I really liked Edith Finch because I think it was an interesting way. We talked a lot about this, but I think it's just a really interesting way how they told a story through gameplay, through
Yeah,
music. It was that sort of to me like that perfect marriage of like an interactive story, and that's why I really appreciate it because I think just the changing scenes as the story's being told, the fact that you are the person who's committing these actions that are leading these characters' death, knowing that, is really really interesting. I don't know. I just feel like that game, like it just like kind of blew me away, like in so many ways. I think it's just a good game to talk about. That I think like everybody should try. And in the same note, Night in the Woods has some of the best dialogue I've ever seen in a game. To the point where I have been playing other games like recently that are like Hollywood quality voice acting and sort of thing. Like Quantum Break specifically, I've been playing recently, and I played Horizon a little bit recently, and this game just like stood like head and shoulders above them in terms of like natural dialogue between characters.
yeah.
And I would just really like to see more of that. And I think it'd be really interesting to see like natural dialogue. Well, I guess in a Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy 15 did this really well.
Oh, you mean just like oh, we're driving in a car having a conversation, that kind of deal?
Yeah, and the conversation feels natural and not forced between characters, given the situations that
Oh
they're
yeah.
in.
Yes,
And
the generic RPG, like, look at that mountain over there. Let's talk for a second about that mountain over there.
yeah, it's more like instead, but it's yeah, exactly. But like I feel like Final Fantasy 15, like damn, dude, I'm getting cold, sort of
Yeah,
thing. It's just
exactly.
like
Like,
it's not
we're
like
high up
look at
on
that.
this mountain. I should have brought a jacket. And you're like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It feels like something you would say with your buddies, and like Night in the Woods, like the entire game is that.
Yeah.
And it feels like these really natural conversations. To the point where, in a game that I was expecting the best audio and visual combination, instead something I don't necessarily care about, which is dialogue, which is a weird thing. It turned out to be like the best part about that game, um, and kept it really engaging throughout.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think those are two good, like, those are two good ones to have in there, but are always, I think that's that, like, hard to put that over some of the other heavy hitter games, so to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah. I think you in your top five, you said like I want to put these on here, but these other games did so much more.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So, four, what would that be?
Destiny 2.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I have not played it. I've heard mixed things, but go for it. Justify
Yeah.
this.
Oh no, I'm not gonna justify this at all. I just like the game.
It's number four, but I have no reason for it. Just believe me.
No, no, it's not that I don't have no reason for it. I think Destiny 2 is I think one of the funny things that I like to think about Destiny 2 is I think when they this year when they had the Game of the Year awards, they had Destiny 2 was voted for best art style against Cuphead, Horizon, and Persona 5.
Yeah, which felt really weird having not played Destiny 2.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And everyone's like, why the hell is Destiny 2? Destiny 2 has like one of the like most ridiculously strong art styles like I've seen like in a sci-fi game. It's really really unique. It's just like they have really really gorgeous environments, but I think everybody sees just the explosions and the loot and all that stuff that it kind of goes by the wayside. I think besides that, I really, really like Destiny gameplay, in that it's a drop in, drop out, cooperative, very laid back game. That's it kind of it's kind of like the time you would spend playing Rocket League with your friends or something like that. It's this very laid back multiplayer that just like, because it's so easy to drop in, drop out, you can do some missions with your friends, you can do some or not. I play this game a lot with my dad, so I think that's probably why it's definitely like kind of like, what influencing my opinion on it. But I just like that the game caters to a lot of people. Me, I like to play some of like the more hardcore missions, like some of the heroic strikes and some of the. I haven't done the whatever the big mission. I forgot that thing's called.
Isn't it raid?
Yeah, the raid. I haven't done the raid yet because I don't have the time to do it and try to figure out and get 6 people. Um, but I like that my dad, who like really he's not good at games, but he can enjoy it, and he's actually got a higher light level than me just because he can do like the basic missions, and the game like lets him progress that way, while I can sit there and do like the hardcore multiplayer games, do the harder missions and stuff, maybe progress a little faster than him, but I'm not leaving him in the dust sort of
Yeah.
thing. So I like this sort of game that it feels new, it feels different, in that it just feels like it's a game that caters to everybody, and I think it's better for it. I think it's more interesting because of it. It's a game that cares to everybody and leave a lot of people satisfied. I think the most hardest of core is the people it's not satisfying, which may or may not be a mistake, I think, in the end. But
Yeah.
I think just for my purposes of dropping in and dropping out and playing for like an hour a day or like maybe an hour a week or something like that, it's a ton of fun. There's a lot of things you can do in it. I think once you get past 40 hours, you're not going to enjoy yourself too much. But the 40 to 60 hours I put into it, like I just really, really loved. It's just a fun game. It's not great. It's not amazing. I just enjoyed it as my sort of popcorn game of the year sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think those are always good to have in there too. Not everything has to be crazy Edith Finch Night in the Woods over dramatic. You can have
Yeah,
that popcorn fun. You can have your Marvel movie.
yeah. It's just
So
really solid.
number 3.
So number 3 is Mario Odyssey. Um,
Okay, all right.
yeah,
That was my game of the year.
yeah. I was I think we talked a little bit about this before. Is I really, really love the main campaign of Mario Odyssey. I think it's incredible. I think it's so much fun. I think it's everything that everybody's gushed about it. I love how different it is. How every new world is like, um, I don't know. It just feels like something new all the time.
Yeah,
It feels like it's like something old, something new. And I like the way that it plays in nostalgia. I think it's really clever. I think a lot of Mario games sort of just like they'll put old characters in because they need to put old characters in because that's a Mario game. And in
yep,
this one, it sort of saves those moments of like the nostalgia moments. It kind of keeps them close to the chest, because it has so much new stuff. So when it plays a nostalgia card, it plays them really hard and it hits a lot harder. So I really enjoyed that aspect. I think the reason this isn't higher is because I try to get up to 500 moons and do something like the end game stuff. And the end game stuff to me, which is really funny, I like Destiny. The end game stuff of Mario, um, I think is completely counterintuitive to the rest of the game. It's no longer about exploration. It's no longer about discovering new things. Um, I would say a small handful of the end game is that, but I'd say a large majority is just it's not that fun. It kind of dampened my mood on Mario. So like this probably would have been number one, maybe number two, if it hadn't been for that like end game, like to the point where like the game had just literally ended at that last level that you get at the end of the game. Like I would have been more
yeah.
content.
Well, and again, I think we had this conversation too in our review of this,
Yeah,
where I stopped pretty much right after that last level, and just occasionally went back and got a star or two, versus the putting investing hours in that. And I think we
yeah.
talked about that, where it does damper the experience a little bit, so I could see that. And I think most of the end game stuff is a lot of going back and redoing bosses and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely some like interesting challenges, but it just feels like a very different game that's not as interesting. It's definitely I think some of the platforming stuff is fun, like some of the platforming challenges, but the things I enjoyed about the campaign, which is the surprising aspects, are just not there. There's no more exploration. It's just like do these jumping challenges or just kind of like find this nook or this cranny sort of thing.
Yeah,
It's
yep.
it's just not as it's not as interesting game, and it kind of feels like the game is sort of artificially lengthening itself to some extent, where because it's kind of giving you this expectation, this amazing end game, and it's just not there.
Yeah, I could see that. And
Yeah,
yep, that's how that goes. I think sometimes when you invest more time than the game really needs. Uh,
exactly.
all right, so what would number 2 be then?
Number 2 is Evil Within 2.
Damn.
Like,
Okay.
legit, not even joking. I think Evil Within 2, I know this is not going to be like, I know this is not going to be on like many people's Game of the Year list, because I don't think it's as good as some of the other games. Like, I don't think it's as good as Zelda. It's probably not as good as Mario. It's probably not as good as Horizon. But just for me personally, it took a lot of my favorite aspects from a bunch of different games and then mixed them together into something like really, really wonderful. Um, it took the actual horror aspects of Silent Hill, and put them into Resident Evil, which sounds kind of redundant. Like, Resident Evil is
Yeah.
already kind of scary, but this is the first action horror genre game. Like, it's like Dead Space, Resident Evil 4 or 5, and not many other games in this, that actually made action horror really scary.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I think that's something that's been kind of missing from action horror games, is like, because they lean so hard on the action that you don't feel that it's not just not as scary. But this game does really, really good mixes of having high intensity action sequences in very, very freaky settings, and just giving you just enough ammo to survive. So there is not this, you don't feel like that godlike Resident Evil, where you just like stomp through everything and just blow everybody away. And it feels like there's a lot more active participation of the player, of how much of the survival horror aspects they want to get involved with. Like, yeah, maybe you can play it like a shooter, but the game rewards thinking, thinking more. So it's got a lot of that. So it's like an action thinking game that takes a lot of cool horror aspects of Silent Hill and like mix them with Resident Evil, and on top of it throw some Matrix stuff, and probably has like one of the cool, like, I was thinking about this with Mario Odyssey, because I was thinking that Evil Within 2 is probably one of my favorite finales in a game.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to compare it to Mario Odyssey, because that's
Yeah.
also has a really good finale. I'm not going to get into spoilers. I promise. But I think mechanically it's more interesting as a finale than the Mario Odyssey one. I think the Mario Odyssey one works really well because it's Mario.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
This game doesn't have the
Nostalgia play.
history, huh?
It doesn't have this nostalgia play.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have the history to lean on, to do its finale. So to me, its finale is almost like more impressive because the way it mixes the gameplay, it mixes the story, it has a really satisfying conclusion. It's just really, 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 really strong. That I was like just jaw dropped. I was surprised how just damn good this game was, and I think that's a big aspect of it. Was I was surprised how good this game was.
Oh yeah.
Because it has not been talked about a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, no, it's just incredible. It's awesome. I love that game.
Yeah, those ones that come out of nowhere, I think, always tend to hit a little bit harder when they are really good. When you just have low expectations and you go and you're just like, "Damn, that's a good game."
Yeah, and it does enough new that I think it's definitely like, I think that's why I liked it so much, was not just that like it did old things good. It did like its own twist on those that I thought was really, really well done. I also really like the Darksider series, which kind of like just took a bunch of ideas and threw its like own neat twist on it. And that's kind of how I would sort of throw this in the same bucket, but it like pulled from other things that I like, took horror and action games and that sort of thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
And the game that you have compared every other game to this year, and I feel like we'll continue to do for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know how many reviews you've gotten through without saying this game. So your number one game is
Horizon.
Yay!
It's hard to talk about like anything more about this game than actually no. There's something I do want to talk about this game, because we've talked a lot about it in like different aspects. The reason I think I really, 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 really like this game, I think more than anything, is because it reminds me of a book series I used to read as a kid called Dinotopia.
Classic.
Yeah. And I actually recommend, if you're into Horizon, like kind of like look these picture books up. But the thing I really liked about Horizon and that Dinotopia is essentially this book series about people who live alongside dinosaurs. And the big thing the cool thing about that series is that it was written by a National Geographic author who had to do he knew a lot about anthropology and stuff, and cultures. So the Dinotopia series was always this interesting mix of human and dinosaur cultures and how they would coexist in that environment. And like sort of the careful sort of thought process you would need, and sort of like how would like, okay, it's like one of my favorite examples of Dinotopia is that like brontosauruses have a foot pedal to push water up and then act as fire hoses. to
Hmm.
put out fires, and it's like it's like a neat mechanism that it's really really well thought out. And that's the thing I just really loved about Horizon is it felt like one of the most well thought out worlds.
For
Um,
sure.
and while I didn't super enjoy like the tribal stuff, I think that you can just tell that there's a lot of love and care kind of just put into the world that game was creating. More so than like I don't know any game this year for sure. I think Zelda is kind of an easy comparison, where I feel like Zelda was more like gameplay. It definitely this world was built around the gameplay aspects. This one felt it like definitely was built on not only the gameplay aspects, but a lot on the story, a lot on the mythos, a lot on, and like on top of all that stuff, it's also just a really fun game to play. So it
Yeah.
just
Oh yeah.
kind of felt like this game I've been waiting for a really, really, really long time. Um, and I think I think that's actually kind of what colored my because I played it like at launch, and I think that kind of colored my expectations for the rest of the year is because no other game could live up to that. Um,
Yeah, it definitely was weird having that come out at the beginning of the year and thinking in terms of Game of the Year awards, going like you're gonna start the year with that. Like
yeah,
you don't. It's hard to go up from that in my mind. I mean, I think that was my number two game, but
yeah.
it's hard in my mind to picture something being more involved. And you mentioned that story is one of the most thought out stories of last year. I would say in terms of an initial game, a first game in an IP having that developed of a story, that deep of a backstory for every aspect of it, I don't think there's many that could compare over the course of video games.
Yeah, 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 exactly. And it was just surprising, like just the level of quality of so many aspects of that game, and it's still an open world game.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
like it's just like even on its own, it does so many things better than linear games that would like you'd expect good stories in linear games, you'd expect good characters. And well, this one gave it didn't have good characters, but they had okay characters. Um, but just I think a lot of things that you would expect from linear games, this game had,
Yep.
on top of being open world, just being gorgeous and just I don't know. Like I like I don't know if there's like better games out there than this. Just I guess from to cater to my tastes. I just don't think that I could find a better game that would. And that's why I'm like kind of like looking at like 2000. Like I played a lot of games this year. Like I played Cuphead, I played Nier Automata, I played Yakuza Zero, um,
Zelda.
Zelda. Um, Not gonna get that one. But and it's just like I just felt like the list that I'm just like talking about, like I just felt like well those some of those games were probably better in certain aspects. It's just like I think Horizon is just like the cumulative like culmination of like everything I love about games. Um yeah, I don't know,
I can
there's not
see
much
that.
else to say about
I can see
it.
that.
Yeah.
All right. So Edith Finch, Night in the Woods, Destiny 2, Mario Odyssey, Evil Within 2, and Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yep.
Doug's five favorite games of the year.
Yep.
We will be back with our third game of the year part edition, whatever,
Hmm.
which will come up with our collective game of the year, which, based on your list and my list, I think will be a pretty easy conversation this year. But
Yeah, it's like it's gonna be pretty laissez-faire.
normally this is a bit of an argument, and I don't think that's going to happen this year based on the way our list kind of shook out. So,
Yeah.
with that being said, you can find that later on, or follow, and if you follow us on Twitter at Workforce Gaming, subscribe to us wherever you're listening, and we will see you later.
Bye.